In the world of hydrogen innovation, the spotlight often falls on megaprojects, massive electrolyzer farms, futuristic hydrogen cities, and high-speed fuel cell trains that dominate headlines. Yet, some of the most transformative developments are taking shape far from the urban sprawl, in quiet farming towns and rural landscapes where access to reliable fertilizer and affordable energy determines the rhythm of life. Here, hydrogen's role transcends transportation or power generation. It becomes the unseen enabler of food security, economic resilience, and sustainable rural development. The most compelling example of this shift comes from an emerging class of technologies producing green ammonia, fertilizer made from green hydrogen using renewable electricity rather than fossil fuels. This single transformation could slash global carbon emissions, stabilize fertilizer prices, and give farmers control over one of their most essential inputs. Ammonia, NH3, is the backbone of modern agriculture. Every bag of fertilizer used to grow crops on the planet owes its existence to hydrogen derived from natural gas. The Haber-Bosch process, invented over a century ago, consumes vast quantities of fossil energy and emits nearly 2% of the world's CO2 each year. Replacing that hydrogen with one made from renewable power, so-called green hydrogen, offers an immediate and measurable path to decarbonize agriculture. But until recently, the process was confined to industrial giants with centralized facilities. What TalusAg and its partners have done is reverse that logic entirely. They have miniaturized the technology, placing modular containerized ammonia plants directly on farms or near cooperatives, turning agriculture itself into both producer and consumer of hydrogen-derived fertilizer. Two living case studies demonstrate that vision vividly: the TalusAg Kenya Nut Company project in Naivasha, Kenya, and the TalusAg Landus Cooperative demonstration in Iowa, USA. Both use hydrogen produced from water and renewable electricity to synthesize ammonia on site, but they serve vastly different markets and resource environments. Kenya's installation sits amid abundant sunlight, high fertilizer import costs, and limited infrastructure, while Iowa's system operates within one of the most productive agricultural regions in the world, leveraging policy incentives and cooperative aggregation. Together they tell a global story of how green hydrogen can take root in rural soil. Feasibility for such systems rests first on the physics of energy. To produce 1 ton of ammonia, about 178 kilograms of hydrogen are required. Modern electrolysis consumes around 50 kilowatt-hours of electricity per kilogram of hydrogen, so every ton of ammonia demands roughly 9 to 12 megawatt-hours of renewable electricity. A 1 ton per day plant therefore needs a steady flow of 10 to 12 megawatt-hours every day. In a solar-rich region with 5 to 6 hours of effective sunlight, that corresponds to roughly 2 to 3 megawatts peak of installed solar panels. TalusAg's Kenya installation uses a 2.1 megawatt solar array, precisely what the numbers predict. The alignment between theoretical and real-world sizing is one of the most reassuring signs of technical feasibility. In the US Midwest, sunlight is more seasonal, so the Iowa system pairs roughly 1 megawatt of solar power with a grid connection that supplies electricity at night or during cloudy spells. This hybrid setup allows utilization above 80% without costly battery storage. Traditional Haber-Bosch reactors were never designed for fluctuating power, but TalusAg's engineers built a micro-reactor that can ramp production up and down dynamically, storing small volumes of hydrogen to buffer short-term intermittency. Energy efficiency drops slightly under this mode, yet the overall system remains far cleaner and more flexible than any fossil-based alternative. Resource feasibility goes beyond electricity. Electrolysis requires water, about 9 liters per kilogram of hydrogen, or roughly 1.6 cubic meters of water per ton of ammonia. Even after accounting for cooling and purification, total water use rarely exceeds 3 cubic meters per ton, a trivial amount for most agricultural sites. Air supplies the nitrogen, extracted by compact membrane or pressure swing adsorption units that consume minimal power. Land requirements are modest. A 2 megawatt solar field occupies less than 5 hectares, easily integrated into existing farmland. Unlike massive petrochemical complexes, these rural systems are almost silent and visually unobtrusive. Safety and permitting are essential for any project handling ammonia, a substance both vital and hazardous. Leaks can cause burns or respiratory harm, and public trust depends on visible safety design. TalusAg's Kenya Nut installation underwent a full environmental impact assessment through Kenya's National Environment Management Authority, receiving approval in 2025. The facility uses gas detectors, ventilated containment, automatic shutdown valves, and training for local responders. Its rural setting simplifies buffer zone requirements while offering clear evacuation routes. The success of this permitting process demonstrates that small ammonia plants can coexist safely within agricultural communities when transparency and design rigor are prioritized. Operational feasibility depends on people as much as equipment. Each modular plant employs a handful of technicians, 2 to 3 per shift, supported by remote monitoring from TalusAg's central operations team. Electrolyzer stacks now last more than 60,000 hours before major replacement, equivalent to 7 years of service. Maintenance intervals are predictable, and spare parts packages are small enough to be shipped anywhere. Crucially, the ammonia produced is chemically identical to conventional fertilizer, so farmers can use their existing storage tanks, injectors, and distribution systems. There is no learning curve in the field. The change is invisible to the crops but profound for the climate. Economically, the argument for local green ammonia is strengthening each year. Early modules cost between $4 and $6 million per ton per day capacity, including renewables. As manufacturing scales, analysts expect that figure to fall below $2 million by the end of the decade. Operating costs hinge mostly on electricity. At 10 megawatt-hours per ton and $40 per megawatt-hour for solar power, energy input costs about $400 per ton of ammonia. Adding maintenance and overhead yields a levelized cost between $600 and $700 per ton, already competitive with fossil-based ammonia in 2025, particularly once transport costs are counted. In East Africa, imported fertilizer often travels 10,000 kilometers by sea and road, incurring $200 to $400 per ton in logistics alone. Local production eliminates those costs and shields farmers from global price shocks. In the United States, where import logistics are cheaper, policy incentives like the Inflation Reduction Act's 45 volts credit, worth up to $3 per kilogram of low-carbon hydrogen, can lower green ammonia costs by $500 to $700 per ton, making them immediately viable. Policy certainty, rather than technology readiness, has become the decisive factor. Bankability, the ability to attract investment, follows directly from offtake certainty and operational credibility. The Kenya Nut Company signed a 15-year fixed-price supply contract with TalusAg, ensuring revenue stability and giving lenders confidence. The Landus Cooperative in Iowa aggregates dozens of farms under a single agreement, spreading demand risk. Financing models range from co-op ownership, where farmers invest directly and receive discounted fertilizer, to lease-to-own or fertilizer as a service structures in which TalusAg or a third party retains ownership and sells output at predictable prices. Lenders evaluate technical metrics such as energy intensity, uptime, carbon intensity, and safety compliance, treating these systems much like mini power plants or renewable microgrids. In Naivasha, Kenya, the picture is especially promising. The 2.1 megawatt solar field powers the Talus 1 module, producing roughly 1 ton of ammonia per day. Each ton prevents about 8 tons of carbon dioxide emissions compared to imported fertilizer. The 15-year contract locks in supply and price stability, while the system supports 3,500 hectares of macadamia and coffee orchards. Around 60 local jobs have been created directly and indirectly. The energy sizing matches theory perfectly, import logistics savings outweigh small-scale inefficiencies, and EA approval proves that rural chemical manufacturing can be both safe and sustainable. The greatest challenge ahead is replication, training operators and ensuring spare parts availability as more farms adopt the model. Across the Atlantic, the Landus Cooperative project in Iowa paints a complementary picture. The 1 ton per day demonstration system, powered by about 1 megawatt of solar panels and the local grid, began producing in 2025. Its estimated $5 million capital cost reflects first-of-kind status. Farmers are testing yield and soil response through controlled field trials. Encouraged by early results, TalusAg and Landus are planning a 20-ton per day expansion at Eagle Grove, which will enjoy scale economies and integrate wind power for additional resilience. In this context, policy support is crucial. The 45 volts hydrogen tax credit bridges the cost gap with gray ammonia, while cooperative aggregation provides natural offtake diversification. Cold weather operation has been validated with freeze protection systems, further reinforcing technical readiness. Comparing both sites underscores how geography shapes feasibility. Kenya's high solar yield, expensive imports, and community-scale demand make on-farm ammonia an obvious win even without subsidies. Iowa's well-developed infrastructure and lower logistics costs demand policy and aggregation to reach the same outcome. In both, however, the modular concept has proven flexible, reliable, and bankable. The technology no longer needs demonstration, it needs deployment. Looking ahead, replication depends on 5 fundamentals. First, secure anchor demand through long-term offtake agreements with large farms or cooperatives. Second, size renewable generation realistically, about 2 megawatts of solar per ton per day output. Third, select the right ownership model. Farm-owned systems work best in Africa, while co-ops or developer-operated structures suit North America. Fourth, address safety and permitting early with clear environmental and emergency plans. Fifth, invest in local skills through vendor training and remote support. When these elements align, rural hydrogen projects move from prototype to profitable infrastructure. Beyond economics, the broader implications are transformative. Green ammonia represents hydrogen's entry point into agriculture, offering a faster route to decarbonization than fuel cells or industrial refineries. Distributed fertilizer manufacturing strengthens food security, creates rural jobs, and keeps more value within farming regions. In cooperative models, profits circulate locally rather than flowing to global commodity traders. Stable fertilizer prices translate into predictable crop economics, reducing volatility for millions of farmers worldwide. By 2030, small green ammonia units could supply 10 to 15% of regional fertilizer demand in parts of Africa and the American Midwest. As electrolyzer prices fall, catalysts improve, and policy frameworks mature, decentralized ammonia may reach cost parity with conventional production even without subsidies. At that point, hydrogen will cease to be a futuristic buzzword and become an everyday agricultural input, as essential as water and sunlight. What these stories reveal is a quiet revolution. Hydrogen is no longer confined to pipelines, trucks, or city refueling stations. It is flowing into the soil, enabling farmers to nourish their fields without compromising the climate. The Kenya and Iowa plants are small in scale but vast in implication. They demonstrate that hydrogen can empower rural economies, decouple food systems from fossil fuels, and democratize access to clean technology. The transformation is technical, economic, and moral, a redefinition of what it means to feed the world sustainably. For developers, investors, and policymakers seeking to replicate these results, the pathway is clear. Start with solid feasibility studies grounded in real numbers, energy, water, land, and cost. Design around modular scalability. Build partnerships that balance technical expertise with local ownership. And never lose sight of the communities that stand to benefit most. Rural hydrogen innovation is not merely an engineering challenge, it is a social contract to ensure that the green transition includes everyone, from industrial hubs to remote farmlands. Hydrogen's promise is vast, but its power lies in application. When a macadamia farm in Kenya and a cornfield in Iowa can both produce their own fertilizer from sunlight and water, the future of sustainable agriculture has already arrived. The task now is to scale it responsibly, finance it wisely, and train the next generation of hydrogen farmers and engineers to sustain it. To learn how to develop, finance, and scale projects like these, from feasibility modeling to investor presentations, visit https://h2hub.reneenergy.com. At h2hub.reneenergy.com, you'll find professional courses, templates, and practical tools designed to help renewable energy developers, consultants, and agribusiness leaders turn hydrogen potential into profitable reality. Whether you're planning a modular green ammonia project, a solar hydrogen microgrid, or a full project finance model, the resources available at H2Hub will guide you every step of the way. The hydrogen revolution is no longer distant, it's growing in the fields. Begin your journey today.